Beginning. The first war broadcast. The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of glass and light, orbiting the twin suns of Vareth Prime. Hundreds of species gathered in tense silence as the holoscreens flickered to life. Across the chamber, banners of neutral colors hung limp. Even the air recyclers seemed to hum quieter than usual. War was about to be televised. For the first time in history, the galaxy would witness a Terran war in real time. Ambassador Ilyrion of the Silex Confederation curled his 4 talons anxiously. "Is this truly necessary?" he whispered to the being beside him. "To broadcast a human conflict to every corner of the galaxy? Surely this is barbaric." Beside him, Counselor Shrin of the Valari shrugged, her tendrils dimming with unease. "They volunteered," Ilyrion said. "We should see how humanity defends what's theirs." "I believe those were their words." Ilyrion made a low clicking sound. "Defends? They're going to slaughter." Across the hall, the human representative, Ambassador Evelyn Carter, stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Her uniform was simple, black with a single silver star at the collar. Her face betrayed nothing, but her eyes burned like a furnace barely contained. The council's grand speaker gestured, and the holographic display expanded into a full 3-dimensional panorama. The feed was live, from orbit above Ilyrion V, a disputed mining world. Beneath the swirling clouds, the armies of the Drask Imperium, massive, scaled giants encased in armor of molten steel, marched across the plains. Their ships blotted out the sun. Their ground vehicles clawed through the soil like metal beasts. And at the edge of the screen, smaller human figures were seen digging trenches, setting up emplacements, stringing energy barriers. The contrast was absurd. Primitive against godlike. Flesh against iron. Ilyrion leaned forward. They're outnumbered 20-1. And their technology? Primitive pulse rifles? Atmospheric craft? Are they mad? Ambassador Carter did not answer. She only whispered, almost to herself, "They know." Middle. The storm called humanity. The Drask attack began at dawn. From orbit, it looked like the world itself was cracking open. Plasma bolts fell like rain. Entire human fortifications vanished under firestorms of light. The ground melted into glass. The council gasped as data feeds showed casualty projections spiking. "Pull them out," shrieked one of the Valari delegates. "They'll be annihilated within the hour." But Evelyn Carter only folded her arms. "Keep watching." Down on Ilyrion V, the human commander, a grizzled veteran named Colonel Aiden Reeves, stood in the mud, shouting orders over the comm. "Hold positions. Phase 2 in 30 seconds. His adjutant, a young lieutenant, looked terrified. "Sir, they've breached the north line. We're losing men." "I said 30 seconds, Reeves barked. Above them, the sky split apart. A formation of black, angular shapes screamed through the clouds. Human bombers, stealth designs invisible to most scanners. They dove straight into the storm of Drask fire, weaving through plasma bursts so closely the air rippled. The aliens in the council hall flinched as one bomber was hit, spiraling downward in flames. But instead of retreating, the others continued their run. And then the ground erupted. Massive electromagnetic pulses detonated across the Drask lines, frying their targeting systems and igniting fuel reserves. The battlefield turned into a churning inferno of smoke, flame, and confusion. Within seconds, the Drask formation collapsed. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. What was that? EMP detonations within a plasma storm? That's suicidal. They're killing their own troops. Carter remained silent. Back on the ground, Reeves' voice cut through the chaos. Now we fight like humans. Infantry, move. From the smoke, thousands of soldiers surged forward, mud-caked, bleeding, some missing armor plates, but all roaring. Their movements were erratic, unpredictable, like a swarm that refused to die. The Drask soldiers regrouped, roaring back with superior firepower. But every time they fired, humans adapted, rolling, flanking, crawling through the mud to get close enough to throw grenades into the enemy ranks. Every time a human fell, two more took their place. A drone's camera zoomed in on a human medic dragging a wounded Drask soldier to safety, wrapping a tourniquet around his massive arm while plasma bolts scorched the earth nearby. The alien's scaled face was twisted in confusion. "Why?" the Drask rasped. The medic just grinned grimly. "Because that's what we do." The Council reacts. The Galactic Council sat frozen. Many had never seen true warfare before. Their species had long since abandoned the concept. Disputes were settled by trade, or votes, or sanctioned duels between champions. But humans? Humans made war into an art form. A terrible, breathtaking dance of ingenuity and madness. Ambassador Luroth whispered, They're using chaos as a weapon. Carter finally looked up. That's our oldest ally. The battle raged for hours. The Drask fleet in orbit unleashed orbital strikes, but human ships, smaller, faster, using debris fields for cover, darted between them like hornets. One destroyer, the TFS Valiant, rammed a cruiser 3 times its size, igniting its own core to take the enemy vessel with it. The feed cut to static as the explosion expanded into orbit. When the image cleared, half the Drask fleet was gone. So was half of humanity's. Silence fell again in the chamber. "Ambassador Carter," the Grand Speaker said finally, his voice trembling. "What are we witnessing?" Carter's expression softened, though her eyes remained hard. "You're witnessing why no one should ever corner us. Why peace with humanity isn't a favor, it's a blessing." Turning point, the line that wouldn't break. By nightfall, the battle had devolved into a stalemate. Both sides had taken unimaginable losses. The Drask commander, General Krogar, snarled through his comms. "These humans refuse to yield. Burn the entire valley, if you must." Flame torrents swept across the human trenches. Reeves and his men huddled under collapsed barriers as the world turned to fire. For a moment, all was screaming wind and smoke. Then the wind cleared, and the humans were still there, scorched, exhausted, but alive. Because during the bombardment, Reeves had ordered the engineers to detonate subterranean mines, collapsing the valley floor itself and burying most of his troops beneath reinforced bunkers just before the inferno hit. They had dug into the planet. Now they emerged like ghosts, crawling out of craters and fissures. The Drask soldiers hesitated, just for a second. That was all humanity needed. A coordinated counteroffensive erupted across the valley. Human artillery hidden underground rose on hydraulic platforms, firing point-blank into the Drask formations. Orbital drones synchronized strikes with ground teams. Even the wounded fought, propping themselves against wrecked vehicles, using scavenged weapons, screaming battle cries that echoed across the burning plains. From orbit, it looked like the surface itself had come alive, red with fury and flame. The Galactic Reckoning. As the Council watched in horror, the Drask lines broke. Their command vessels tried to retreat, but the human fleet had already surrounded them. They could have annihilated them. Instead, Carter gave the order to cease fire. "Why stop?" demanded a dozen voices from the Council. "You could end them.